I've always wondered how some of the greatest athletes ever would fare as politicians. So I created this tier ranking and compiled a short list of some of the most famous athletes in the world. I'm going to tell you guys where I think these athletes might fall on the tier ranking. So let me briefly explain these tiers. If the person falls under presidential, it means that they would be a great president. They would be awesome as a politician. Number 2, the second best one would likely be a great leader. Not quite presidential, but still positive. Number 3, they're kind of in the middle. They have potential. Next, also kind of in the middle. I would lean no toward them being a good politician. Next one, which is second to last, fuck it, it would be entertaining to see. And the last one would be the worst, would literally burn the country to the ground. Quickly, before I start rating these athletes, I want to preface that I'm sure that the political leanings of many of these athletes have already been made public. So I'm not rating them based off of if I agree with their politics or not. I'm rating them based off a few factors. First, their leadership skills. Second, their ability to inspire. Third, their emotional intelligence. 4, how likely they are to root out corruption. The fifth and final factor that I'm going to take into consideration is whether this person would likely do good for everyday Americans and not just do things in the interest of their billionaire and corporate donors. Starting off strong with Shaquille O'Neal. He's very charismatic, very likable, funny. I believe he made the cost of his signature basketball shoe very inexpensive so that lower income people could purchase his shoes. And I think they sell at Walmart as well. That's a really cool thing that he did. Looking out for the lower class there. I'm not sure about the emotional intelligence part because I regularly see him engage in Twitter beefs with random people. But that doesn't disqualify you from being president, obviously. Overall, I think Shaq has a big heart. I think he's got good intentions. So I have faith that he would surround himself with people in his administration that also would have good intentions. So he's going to presidential. Next is Manny Pacquiao, famous boxer from the Philippines. Now, many people don't know this, but when he retired from boxing, he actually became a politician in the Philippines. I believe he was a senator. So he has real experience being at the top of political leadership in his country. I read that he's very conservative as a politician, but again, I'm not ranking based off of political bias, but more as the person themselves. I don't know much about Filipino politics, but I'm assuming he was all right because I think he served for like 6 years or something. So we'll put him in the has potential. Next is Ric Flair, the nature boy. As a politician, I think he'd be just terrible. I think he'd be extremely corrupt. He lives a very lavish lifestyle, so I think he'd be out of touch with everyday Americans. But fuck it, it'd be entertaining to see. It's Ric Flair. Next is Megan Rapinoe, and she was a popular U.S. soccer player. I remember back in the day, conservatives hated her because they thought she was super libbed up and woke. I'm sure she's a good person, but I don't get good vibes from her, so no, just no. Kobe Bryant. Personally, my favorite basketball player ever. How would he have been as a politician? His ability to inspire was second to none. He spoke like 4 or 5 languages. A brilliant man. In the end, I think Kobe would surround himself with the right people, kind of like Shaq. He would surround himself with people who are high achievers, high motor, and results minded. I think he would be a good presidential level politician. Next is Ronda Rousey, who is a former UFC fighter. I don't know much about her. I know she starred in a couple films after her downfall in the UFC. I don't get bad vibes from her, but I also just don't know. So I'm going to put her as has potential because she was a badass. So I'll put her as potential. Next is LeBron James. I think he would fall somewhere in between a great leader and potential. I don't think he'd be at the presidential level because he famously changes teams to chase championships. So he's not super loyal to his fan base, to his team. And he also flops a lot. I think he'd fall in between 2 and 3, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for being one of the GOATs. So next is primetime Deion Sanders. I think he'd do all right. We'll put him in has potential. Novak Djokovic, famous tennis player. Honestly, don't know much about him, but we'll put him in the middle. Has potential as well. Serena Williams, one of the GOATs of tennis. I think she would be a great leader. Floyd Mayweather, famous boxer. Yeah, he would literally burn the country to the ground. He would probably loot the treasury to enrich himself and his family, and for that reason, yeah, terrible. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, I'm confident that he would not know what the heck he's doing and that he would surround himself with a bunch of rednecks. Yeah, he would be a disaster of a politician, but fuck it, it would be entertaining to see. Next is Simone Biles, famous US gymnast. I've never heard a single bad thing about her. She gives off good vibes, and she's one of my favorite female athletes, so she's going right to presidential. Next is Tom Brady, famous American football player. He gives off JFK vibes in the good ways, but for some reason, the vibes are off with this one. He is a great leader, so I'm going to put him as would likely be a great leader. He would likely be a great politician. Next is Tony Hawk, famous skateboarder. I know he's a good dude. I've heard a lot of good things about him. He gives off Jimmy Carter vibes for some reason. Like he's just a chill guy, you know. But I think he's got potential. Next, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. I might surprise a lot of people with this one. Most people would say immediately presidential. I just think he's too involved with the corporate side of business. And you never hear him talk about any social issues or advocate for anything. But I think he would be a great leader. Rafael Nadal, famous tennis player. Very passionate, very hardworking, smart guy. I think he's got potential. Next is O.J. Simpson. Oh, hell no! And for obvious reasons, he's going straight to the bottom. Michael Jordan, the GOAT of basketball. Again, I might surprise people with this one. I think he's got potential. He just doesn't have the charisma or the leadership or the ability to inspire like Shaq and Kobe have. If he could sharpen his people skills, yeah, he'd go right to the top, but for now, he has potential. Babe Ruth, famous US baseball player. I think he would probably burn this country to the ground. No! John Jones, famous UFC fighter. I think he would bully and intimidate everyone around him, so no, just no. So that's all of the athletes that I had on this list. Obviously, I left out so many people that could have made it, but maybe I'll make a second video, and if people like this, I'll make a part 2.